Hello and welcome. I'm Asuma Kataoka and you are watching NewsX World. Let's take a look at G7 Summit. The G7 Summit is underway in Kananaskis, Canada. Global leaders of the world's top economies have gathered in Canada for high-stakes talks. Joining me to discuss are Spencer Clitry. He's a Democratic communications strategist from California, US, and we have another guest joining us. He is Robinder Sachdev. He's a foreign affairs expert joining us live from New Delhi. Thank you for joining us today. Welcome to NewsX World. So I'll first ask my question to Spencer. Is the Israel-Iran conflict now the defining foreign policy test for this G7, overshadowing trade and climate concerns here?
I think it has to be, a matter of urgent attention, and will inevitably draw some of the focus away from other topics. The Ukraine war will also be a matter of concern, but of course the sudden eruption of all-out war between Israel and Iran even displaces that to a certain extent. There was already going to be, I believe, little attention on the climate crisis, which really should rank with all of the most serious crises the world faces. But my understanding is that Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney is trying to minimize the amount of potential conflict with Donald Trump, who of course famously claims that human-caused climate change is a hoax. But I think you're right. There will inevitably be a great deal of attention and concern about Israel and Iran.
Thank you. Now we move on to our guest, Robinder Sachdev. According to you, Robinder, did the G7 leaders respond slowly or late to the current crisis between Israel and Iran?
I don't think it's neither late or early. They've not responded at all. What has the G7 done, honestly? I mean, in which way, in which effective manner? I think there's a complete absence of leadership. I mean, that's my take. If that is the question, that how have the G7 leaders responded? They've all been humming and hawing. Basically, Israel is leading the charge, whatever it is. And sure, the US is going along, tagging along with it, though the US also very much, I think, is in tune with what Israel is doing. So the G7, I think, has abdicated.
And now moving to Spencer, Trump reportedly vetoed a strike on Iran's supreme leader. Was that a rare moment of restraint or an attempt to avoid blame, according to you?
Yes, possibly a rare moment of restraint. I think we can also usually assume there's always an attempt to avoid blame no matter what, and to claim credit no matter what with President Trump. I should note that the Israeli government denies that Trump vetoed an attack on the supreme leader. I think they would be very sensitive about that claim. In any case, they don't like to appear as if they are taking instructions from the United States. And I think for all his faults, in my opinion, Netanyahu has certainly demonstrated he does not necessarily take instructions from the United States. He's often going his own way to a fault, in my opinion.
And now I want to ask the same question to Robinder. According to you, Robinder, Trump reportedly vetoed a strike on Iran's supreme leader. Was that a rare moment of restraint or an attempt to avoid blame?
Interesting question. Restraint, avoid blame. I would put it more in the column of restraint if that happened, and that I would think would be the right thing. Also, taking out the leaders of a country would, lead to a spiral. Already there's a spiral, right? And that would be another big step of sorts. However, in this world of today, there's so many such steps happening that I think the world is becoming numb to such developments. But overall, if Trump kind of prevailed upon Netanyahu, then it is a moment of restraint, if that is so.
And now moving to Spencer, does President Donald Trump's unpredictability help or hinder diplomatic efforts at summits like this, especially with active conflicts brewing?
Oh, I think it only hurts, and it's already caused great damage so far in this second administration, even greater damage in many ways than he was able to cause in his first administration. Trump supporters like to claim that this is all part of what they call the art of the deal, referring to the title of a book of essentially fiction which he had written for him by a ghostwriter, and which certainly does not reflect his notably unsuccessful business career. So every now and then, of course, random behavior will stumble into a lucky outcome, but that doesn't mean it's a wise strategy for the long term, or even the short or medium term. So no, I think that Trump's chaotic, impulsive decision-making style is only destructive.
And now moving to our other guest, Robinder. According to you, what's the influence of Trump, behind the scenes influence, could shape the G7 response more than that of former sitting heads of governments?
I mean, Trump definitely, whatsoever it be, he does have, or rather, let's say America. America has definitely clout. What Trump is doing is that he's not hesitating to use that clout in ways which are unprecedented, which earlier presidents or earlier leaders have not done. So Trump is certainly, pushing his is pushing the envelope. Let us say, in whatever engagements or whatever policies he sees. Yes, he zigzags, goes a step ahead, goes a step sideways, goes a step upwards, downwards, whatever. But the world is having to adjust to him. Point though, I mean, though there's a pushback, also the point being is that it is America, and America still has the heft of its economic might, and also, of course, of its military might. And Trump is not, in a way now, not shying away from, if not using it, but at least, dangling the threats of it. So the world at present, even though not very happy with many of his decisions, yes, is managing to tiptoe around him. The point is that how long would it take before before not other world leaders, but let's say that before the world or majority or large portion of the world kind of moves away and starts ignoring America and Trump. That unfortunately, or fortunately, let's say whichever way, that will not happen soon because America is still, the 120-pound gorilla, whatever it be. But what it will do, it is doing perhaps is slow by slow. It's eroding it's eroding America's global, let's say, clout in terms of its soft power. And America seems to have veered now into thinking that, see, earlier America would espouse democracy world over, even if it were not kind of upholding democracy and working or in bed with dictators in many parts of the world. But at least that charade of nobility and statesman life was there. Now, America and American dream and American exceptionalism and America as the beacon of democracy, etc. Howsoever imperfect, it's still there. Better than most countries in the world. But now, what America seems to be doing is that giving the go by to all of that and saying that okay, it's only muscular money and military with which America will conduct its foreign policy. So that's the shift. So there will be a pushback over time. And given howsoever overall the world is moving, economic shifts in the world. So Trump is in a way, I mean, running a wager that at the end of his term, America would either have really, broken out from the crowd and be on its way to be great again, what Trump calls, or America might crash and run over the cliff.
And Spencer, what is your take on that? To what Mr. Robinder just said.
Yes, I agree that Trump is essentially giving away America's global leadership position, which it has held since World War II. And he seems to be doing his best to weaken America across every dimension, including the moral one, as was just pointed out. America, can never claim to have been perfect, but it has been unusual among nations in that it does claim to have a moral purpose, and America's leaders are usually not kidding when they say that they believe in that moral purpose, however far short some of them have fallen of it. And that in itself is worth a great deal in terms of American power and influence, because as I say, by comparison to most other countries in the world, including countries that have a lot of power, that is rare. And the ability to trust a country not to attack you, for example, is hard to measure the value of that. Meanwhile, at a more pragmatic level, Trump is just handing away leadership at that practical level, for example, at the G7, through his chaotic behavior, through his insults and antagonism towards our strongest allies, while he bends over backwards to appease countries like Russia, who are really bent on the decline and fall of the United States. His essentially crazy tariffs policy, which can only weaken the American economy as it also disrupts the global economy. And meanwhile, I think one of the themes of the current G7 is that Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney is calmly and methodically, and I think intelligently, at the expense of America, helping to rearrange the world's developed economies and their relationships to thrive in a world in which America's influence is greatly diminished. And I think, again, has just been suggested, I think wisely, preparing for a world in which America may not be all that necessary anymore. And I think all of this is just incredibly reckless and foolish and obviously damaging. It's hard to imagine how Trump could be doing more damage to the United States if somebody had hired him to do it. He seems just to be doing it of his own volition, but it's sure proving to be awfully convenient for America's enemies.
Thank you very much, Spencer Clitchley and Robinder Sachdev, for joining us and sharing your expertise on our channel. Now, joining me on the telecast is my colleague Megha Sharma.